Ready to unlock some serious happiness wisdom.
Let's go.
We're diving deep into the work of Wayne Dyer to do just that. You probably know him as the father of motivation.
Right.
But what's really captivating about Dyer is how he flipped the script on happiness.
Oh, yeah.
He said it's not something you chase, it's something you choose. Ready to see how that works?
Absolutely. What I find truly intriguing is that Dyer didn't just preach this, he lived it. Imagine starting life in orphanages and foster care, not exactly a joyful beginning.
No, not at all.
And yet he became this powerhouse in the self-help world, writing over 40 books. That journey itself speaks volumes.
Okay, that definitely makes me curious. How did his own experiences shape his perspective?
Well, Dyer's difficult childhood probably gave him a firsthand understanding of resilience.
I can see that.
His breakout book, Your Erroneous Zones, came out in 1976.
Yeah.
It challenged the idea that happiness depends on external factors. He argued that true happiness comes from within.
That resonates with me. So many of us get stuck thinking, if only I had this, then I'd be happy.
Right.
It's like we're handing over our happiness to something outside of ourselves.
Exactly. Dyer called that giving away your power one of the biggest erroneous zones we fall into. He believed we're not victims of circumstance, but architects of our own experience.
Yeah.
But how do we actually build that happiness from within?
That's the question, isn't it? Where do we even begin?
Well, Dyer provided a framework. He outlined 4 pillars of joy.
4 pillars.
Foundational to his philosophy, the first, and perhaps the most crucial, is the power of choice.
Okay, break down this choice thing for me. It's easy to feel like our circumstances dictate our happiness.
Dyer was adamant that we have far more control over our thoughts and attitudes than we realize. We're not just passively reacting to the world, we're actively creating our reality with each thought.
Okay.
If you're constantly thinking negatively, well, you're actually feeding your own unhappiness.
So it's not about ignoring the bad stuff, but more about choosing where we direct our energy.
Precisely. He wasn't advocating for some Pollyanna-ish outlook where we pretend everything is perfect.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we always have a choice in how we interpret what happens to us.
That's a subtle but significant shift.
Yeah.
Okay, so choice is the cornerstone. What's the next pillar in Dyer's blueprint for joy?
This one delves a bit deeper the concept of the higher self.
Okay, this sounds a little more spiritual.
Yeah.
How does that fit into the practical pursuit of happiness?
Dyer believed each of us has an inner wisdom, a part of us connected to something bigger than our ego.
Okay.
He called this the higher self, and it's the source of our deepest purpose, love, and compassion.
So less about chasing fleeting happiness and more about aligning with this deeper sense of self.
You're getting it.
Yeah.
When we tap into the higher self, we align with our true purpose, and we start living authentically.
Okay.
That's where lasting joy comes from. It's a kind of happiness that doesn't depend on external validation, which, as we know, can be so fickle.
It's like we become the source of our own joy instead of seeking it from these external sources.
Right.
This makes me think about the whole follow your passion idea. Is that what Dyer was getting at with the higher self?
Absolutely. He would often ask people, what do I feel called to do? It's about recognizing those unique gifts within you and expressing them in the world.
Okay.
When we're living in alignment with our passions and values, happiness becomes less of a pursuit and more of a natural byproduct.
Wow, those first 2 pillars are already shifting my perspective. What's the third building block of joy according to Dyer?
Now, we move into something you might already be familiar with, the power of positive thinking.
Yes.
But Dyer took it a step further with visualization.
Oh, okay.
He didn't see it as just wishful thinking, but as a way to actively create the life you want.
I've dabbled in visualization for goal setting. How did Dyer apply it to happiness?
He believed our minds are incredibly powerful, almost like magnets. By consistently focusing on positive thoughts and vivid images of the life we desire, we attract those things into our reality.
Okay.
It's about intentionally painting a picture of your own happiness.
This makes me wonder about all the times I've gotten stuck in those negative thought spirals.
Right.
It's like I was unknowingly attracting more of what I didn't want.
Exactly. And that's precisely what Dyer was trying to help people break free from. He believed that we have the power to choose our thoughts, and those thoughts, in turn, shape our experiences.
So it's not about denying negative thoughts, but about consciously choosing to focus on what we want to create.
Yeah.
Mindset really is everything.
Absolutely. And that brings us to the fourth and perhaps most challenging pillar of joy, non-attachment.
Non-attachment. This one sounds a bit paradoxical. Don't we want to hold on to the things that make us happy?
It's not about rejecting joy or connection.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that true happiness can't be dependent on external things that are ultimately outside our control.
Can you give me an example? I'm having trouble wrapping my head around this one.
Okay. Imagine you're completely fixated on getting a specific promotion at work.
Okay.
You tie all your hopes for happiness to that one outcome. What happens if you don't get it?
Well, I'd be crushed. Like, I set myself up for
Yes,
disappointment.
exactly. Dyer would say you've made your happiness conditional on something you can't fully control. Non-attachment is about putting in the effort, pursuing your goals,
Hmm.
but not making your happiness hinge on achieving them.
Mm.
It's about finding contentment in the present moment, regardless of the outcome.
So it's about detaching from the outcome, but not from the journey itself.
You're on the right track. It's a practice, and it doesn't mean you won't experience disappointment,
Right.
but it means your overall happiness won't be completely derailed by external events.
These 4 pillars:
Hmm?
choice, higher self, positive thinking with visualization, and non-attachment.
Yes.
They feel like a framework for a whole new way of approaching life.
And what's even more impressive is that Dyer didn't just start at these overarching concepts.
Right.
He gave us a toolkit full of practical methods to actually weave these pillars into our daily lives.
Okay, now we're talking. Give me the highlights of this happiness toolkit.
One of the simplest yet most powerful practices he advocated for was starting each day with gratitude.
Oh, wait.
I know it sounds almost cliche, but Dyer believed it was about far more than just feeling good.
I've heard about gratitude practices before, but to be honest, I haven't been consistent. What made Dyer's approach so unique?
It's about consciously shifting your mindset from what you lack to what you have.
Hmm.
He suggested beginning each day by identifying 3 things, big or small, that you're genuinely grateful for. This simple act rewires your brain to focus on abundance rather than scarcity.
I can see how that can make a difference over time. It's like training yourself to appreciate the good things instead of always dwelling on what's missing. What else did Dyer recommend for cultivating happiness?
He was a big proponent of affirmations, which sometimes get dismissed as overly simplistic.
I get that.
Yeah.
How did Dyer use affirmations in a way that went beyond just repeating feel-good phrases?
Think of affirmations as a way to rewrite the negative scripts running in your subconscious.
Okay.
We're bombarded with negativity, both from the world and our own inner critic.
Right.
Affirmations are like antidotes,
Uh-huh.
positive statements you repeat to yourself,
Yeah.
consciously choosing to focus on the reality you want to create.
So it's about intentionally replacing those negative thought patterns with empowering beliefs.
Precisely. One of Dyer's favorites, and one he often shared, was, "I am worthy of happiness."
Mm.
It seems simple, but for many of us, there's this deep-seated belief that we're somehow not deserving of happiness.
Right.
Affirmations can help us challenge those limiting beliefs and embrace a more positive self-image.
That's powerful stuff. It's like giving ourselves permission to be happy. What other tools did Dyer offer for building a happier life?
One that's especially relevant today is the importance of self-love and self-acceptance.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught in the comparison trap, constantly measuring ourselves against others and focusing on our flaws. How did Dyer address this?
He believed that true happiness begins with accepting and loving ourselves fully, just as we are. He'd remind us that everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and true happiness comes from embracing all parts of ourselves, imperfections included. It's about recognizing that we're already enough.
This feels particularly relevant in the age of social media,
Right.
where everyone's presenting these curated versions of themselves. It's easy to feel inadequate.
Dyer's message is a potent antidote to that. He'd encourage us to remember that true happiness isn't about being perfect or fitting in. It's about honoring our own unique journey. It's about giving ourselves permission to be perfectly imperfect.
That's such a liberating thought. So we've got gratitude, affirmations, and self-love. What else is in Dyer's happiness toolkit?
Another key tool, and one we touched on earlier, is aligning your life with your purpose. Remember Dyer's question, what do I feel called to do? He believed finding and living your purpose brings a deep sense of fulfillment that can't be found in chasing external rewards.
So many of us feel lost or unfulfilled, and I wonder if it's because we're not connected to what truly matters to us. It's easy to get swept up in doing what we think we should do instead of what lights us up.
Dyer's work is a call to reconnect with that inner compass, to make choices that resonate with our authentic selves. When we live with purpose, happiness flows naturally.
This is making me rethink my priorities.
Okay, you mentioned that there was one more tool in Dyer's toolkit. What is it?
It's the one we discussed earlier that can be the trickiest to master. Letting go of ego and practicing non-attachment.
I'm still grappling with this one. Why is it so crucial for happiness?
Remember, Dyer believed that our ego, that part of us constantly seeking external validation and comparing ourselves to others, can actually be a major obstacle to happiness. So it's about shifting from seeking external validation to finding contentment within ourselves.
You got it. And that's where non-attachment comes in. It's not about giving up our goals, but about approaching them with a sense of detachment from the outcome.
Hmm.
We can strive for things, but our happiness shouldn't be contingent on achieving them. It's about finding that sweet spot between effort and acceptance.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. We've covered the 4 pillars of joy, and now this toolkit filled with practical strategies for cultivating happiness. I'm already starting to see how these teachings could transform my life.
That's fantastic. And what's even more incredible is that Dyer's teachings are even more relevant today than they were when he first started sharing them.
Really? I'm curious to hear more about that. Why do you think his message resonates so strongly in the modern world?
Well, consider the world we live in. We're constantly bombarded with information, pressure to succeed, and the never-ending comparison game on social media. It's no wonder so many people feel overwhelmed, anxious, and like they're not enough.
It's like we're drowning in a sea of negativity and external validation.
Exactly. And that's precisely why Dyer's message is so vital today. He reminds us that happiness is an inside job, a choice we can make regardless of what's happening around us.
Mm.
He empowers us to reclaim our happiness and create a more fulfilling life on our own terms.
Okay, I'm officially hooked.
Yep.
Tell me more about why Dyer's work is so essential in the modern world.
One of the biggest reasons is that he championed personal responsibility
Wow.
in a world that often encourages a victimhood mentality.
Right.
He believed that instead of feeling helpless in the face of challenges, we have the power to choose our response.
That's a powerful idea. What do you mean by a victimhood mentality?
It's this belief that we're powerless to change our circumstances,
Hmm.
that we're victims of external forces.
Hmm.
It's easy to fall into that trap, especially when we're facing setbacks.
I see how that would be a problem. If we believe we're powerless, why bother trying to change anything?
Exactly, but Dyer's message is all about empowerment. He reminds us that we always have a choice, that we're not defined by our circumstances, and that we have the power to create our own reality.
So it's about taking ownership of our happiness instead of waiting for someone or something else to give it to us.
Absolutely. In a world where it's so easy to feel like we're at the mercy of external forces, that message is more crucial than ever.
Okay, I'm starting to understand why Dyer's legacy continues to be so powerful. What else makes his teaching so vital in today's world?
Another major reason is that he offers a pathway to inner peace amidst the chaos and overwhelm of modern life.
You're telling me. The constant distractions of technology, the pressure to be productive, the never-ending stream of news and information, it's exhausting.
And that's where Dyer's emphasis on self-acceptance, non-attachment, and purpose-driven living becomes so valuable. He shows us that true peace comes from within, not from trying to control or change everything around us.
So it's about finding that sense of calm amidst the storm.
Exactly. His teachings equip us to navigate the challenges of modern life without getting swept away by the chaos. He reminds us that we don't have to be perfect, that we can let go of the need to control everything, and that true happiness comes from aligning our lives with what truly matters.
This is giving me a whole new perspective on how to approach the daily craziness.
Yeah.
What else makes Dyer irrelevant today?
He provides a potent counterpoint to the rampant materialism that often defines our culture.
It's true. We're constantly bombarded with messages that we need to buy more, achieve more, look a certain way to be happy. It's exhausting.
And it can lead to a never-ending cycle of wanting more, never feeling satisfied, and always looking outside ourselves for validation.
Right.
Dyer's teachings offer a powerful antidote to that mindset. He reminds us that true happiness isn't about what we have, but about who we are.
So it's about shifting our focus from external validation to internal fulfillment.
Precisely. He emphasized gratitude for what we already have, self-love and acceptance for who we are, and finding joy in the simple things. This message is incredibly important in a world that often equates happiness with material possessions and external achievements.
This is really hitting home for me. I can see how getting caught up in that materialistic mindset can be a recipe for unhappiness. Are there any other reasons why Dyer's teachings are so relevant today?
One more I want to highlight is his focus on positive thinking and building mental resilience.
We talked about positive thinking earlier, but why is it especially important in the modern world?
Because negativity is everywhere. Think about the news, social media, and even just the everyday stresses of life.
Right.
It's easy to get bogged down and lose sight of the good.
It's like our brains are wired to focus on the negative.
Exactly. And that's why actively cultivating positivity is so crucial.
Huh.
Dyer taught that our thoughts create our reality,
Okay.
and that by choosing to focus on the positive, we can actually change our experience of the world.
So it's not about ignoring the bad stuff, but about making a conscious choice to focus on the good.
Right.
It's like retraining our brains to be more optimistic.
Exactly. And that's where mental resilience comes in. Dyer's teachings on positive thinking, affirmations, and gratitude help us build resilience so we can bounce back from challenges and maintain a sense of hope, even when things get tough.
This all makes so much sense. To recap, Dyer's teachings are still incredibly relevant because they encourage personal responsibility, promote inner peace, counteract materialism, and build mental resilience. What a powerful combination.
It really is. And the best part is that all of these teachings are rooted in practical tools and techniques that anyone can use to create more happiness in their own lives.
So what are the core takeaways here? What's most important to remember about Dyer's philosophy?
The key takeaway is that happiness is a choice. It starts with owning your thoughts, attitudes, and reactions. You're not a victim of circumstance, but the architect of your own experience.
I love that. It's so empowering. What other key takeaways should we keep in mind?
Remember the power of gratitude, self-love, and purpose. Begin each day with appreciation for what you have, treat yourself with kindness and compassion, and pursue what truly matters to you.
Those are all great reminders. And what about those practical tools we discussed?
Right.
Like affirmations and non-attachment? How can we apply those in a way that makes a real difference?
Use affirmations to reprogram your subconscious mind
Mm-hmm.
and cultivate positivity. And remember, non-attachment isn't about avoiding connection or giving up on your goals. It's about finding contentment in the present moment and accepting that you can't control everything.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling inspired to apply these teachings in my own life.
That's fantastic. Remember, even small changes can make a big difference. You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Just start with one small step today.
That's great advice. What one small step would you recommend our listener take today to begin applying Dyer's teachings?
One of the simplest yet most powerful things you can do is start a gratitude practice. Tonight, before you go to bed, take a few minutes to write down 3 things you're grateful for. It could be something big or small, it doesn't matter. Just focus on appreciating the good things in your life.
That's a great starting point.
Hmm?
It's simple, but I can see how it could have a big impact over time.
I think you'll be amazed at the difference it can make. And who knows, maybe it will inspire you to explore more of Dyer's teachings.
I have a feeling it will. This has been such an eye-opening exploration of Wayne Dyer's world. Before we move on, though, I want to leave our listener with a thought-provoking question inspired by his work.
Oh, I do love a good question. What is it?
If you were to take one small step today to choose happiness in your own life, what would it be?
That's such a powerful question. It invites us to reflect on what we've learned and start putting it into practice. It could be starting that gratitude practice, experimenting with affirmations, or even simply choosing to focus on the positive instead of the negative.
Exactly. And remember, even the smallest steps can lead to big changes over time.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to experiment and see what works best for you. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to happiness. The important thing is to find what resonates with you and makes you feel good.
This conversation has been so enriching. I feel like I've gained so much insight into Dyer's work and, more importantly, into the nature of happiness itself.
I agree. It's been a pleasure diving deep with you today. And remember, the journey to happiness is ongoing. It's not about reaching a destination. It's about enjoying the ride.
Beautifully said.
And to our listener, we'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Wayne Dyer's teachings? Have you tried any of the techniques we discussed today? Share your experiences and keep the conversation going.
Until next time, keep choosing happiness.
As we delve deeper into Dyer's work, I'm struck by how he seamlessly blends psychology and spirituality.
That's true. He didn't shy away from either realm, did he?
Not at all. In fact, before he was known as this self-help guru,
Right.
he was a psychology professor. That background clearly informed his work. He took these complex psychological concepts and made them accessible, for everyone, weaving in spiritual insights without being preachy at all.
It's like he was bridging the gap between academic knowledge and everyday wisdom.
Yes, exactly. He wasn't just about intellectualizing happiness. It was about helping people experience it. And I think that's one of the reasons his message resonates so deeply.
It's interesting you mentioned his psychology background. I'm curious, did he ever talk about how those early years as a professor influenced his later work?
He did. He often said that his time in academia helped him develop a deep understanding of human behavior and motivation. But, he also realized that traditional psychology often focused on what was wrong with people
Yeah.
instead of what was right. He wanted to shift that focus
Mm.
and empower people to create their own happiness.
It sounds like he saw a real need for a more positive and proactive approach to personal growth.
Absolutely. And he filled that need with his unique blend of psychology, spirituality, and practical wisdom. He took what he learned from both Eastern and Western philosophies and just distilled it into something that anyone could apply to their lives.
Now that you mentioned Eastern philosophy, I'm curious to hear more about how that specifically influenced his work.
Dyer was deeply influenced by Taoism and Buddhism,
Hmm.
particularly the concepts of mindfulness and the interconnectedness of all things. He believed that by cultivating awareness of the present moment
Right.
and recognizing our connection to something larger than ourselves,
Yeah,
we could tap into a deeper sense of peace and joy.
that makes a lot of sense. In a world that's so focused on doing and achieving,
Right.
it's easy to lose sight of those simple but profound truths.
Exactly. And Dyer was a master at reminding us of those truths. He'd often say, "Be still and know that I am God." That wasn't about any specific religion, but about recognizing that there's a divine spark within each of us.
It's about connecting with that deeper sense of self, that higher self we talked about earlier.
Exactly. He believed that when we tap into that inner wisdom,
Yeah.
we access a wellspring of peace, love, and joy that's always available to us.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces of his philosophy fit together.
Yeah.
It's not just about positive thinking.
Right.
It's about cultivating a deeper awareness of ourselves and the world around us.
You're getting it. And that awareness allows us to make choices that are aligned with our true selves, leading to a more authentic and fulfilling life.
This is making me think about the stories we hear about people who achieve great success but still feel empty or unfulfilled. It's like they've climbed the ladder but realized it's leaning against the wrong wall.
That's a great analogy, and Dyer would say that's because they've been chasing external validation instead of internal fulfillment. They've been focused on having more, doing more, achieving more,
Right.
instead of being more.
It's like they've missed the point entirely. They've achieved the American dream but haven't found true happiness.
Exactly. And Dyer's message was a call to redefine success. He believed that true success wasn't about material wealth or external achievements,
Yeah.
but about living a life that's aligned with your values,
Right.
your purpose, your soul.
This is making me want to take a serious inventory of my own priorities. Am I chasing things that will ultimately leave me feeling empty, or am I focusing on what truly matters?
That's a great question to ask yourself, and it's a question that Dyer's work constantly invites us to explore.
Yeah.
He believed that true happiness comes from aligning our actions with our values and pursuing what truly brings us joy.
So it's not about denying ambition or striving for excellence.
Right.
It's about making sure that those ambitions are aligned with our authentic self.
Yes, exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where our passions and our purpose intersect.
I love that. It's about being driven by something deeper than just the desire for external rewards. This reminds me of something we discussed earlier, the idea that happiness is an inside job.
Yeah.
Dyer didn't just say this, he actually lived it, right?
He did. His own life is a testament to his teachings. Remember, we talked about his challenging childhood.
Yes, how he spent time in orphanages and foster care.
Right. Those early experiences undoubtedly shaped his perspective on life. It would have been easy to become cynical or bitter,
Right.
but instead he chose to focus on the good, to cultivate gratitude, and to find meaning in his experiences.
It's like he turned his pain into purpose. He took those difficult experiences and used them as fuel to create something positive and impactful.
He did, and that's something we can all learn from. We all face challenges in life.
Right.
But we have a choice in how we respond to them.
Yeah.
We can let those challenges define us, or we can use them as opportunities to grow, to learn,
Right.
and to become more resilient.
It's about choosing to be the hero of our own story, not the victim.
Exactly. And Dyer believed that we all have that power within us. He often said, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change. It's a powerful reminder that our perspective shapes our reality.
This is making me think about how much energy we often waste on things we can't control.
Right,
We worry about the past.
right,
We fret about the future,
right.
and we allow circumstances to dictate our happiness.
It's so easy to get caught in that trap, but Dyer's teachings remind us that we always have a choice.
Hmm.
We can choose to dwell in negativity,
Yeah.
or we can choose to focus on the good,
Hmm.
to cultivate gratitude,
Right.
and to find joy in the present moment.
It's about taking back our power and creating a life that's filled with more peace, joy, and fulfillment.
Exactly. And that's what Dyer's work is all about. It's about empowering us to become the architects of our own happiness.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I'm learning so much about Dyer's philosophy and how we can apply his teachings to our own lives.
I'm glad to hear that. And there's still so much to explore.
Hmm.
Do you want to dive into some specific stories or anecdotes from Dyer's life that really illustrate his teachings?
Absolutely. I love a good story,
Hmm.
especially when it brings these concepts to life.
Well, one story that really exemplifies his teachings on non-attachment is about a time when he lost his home in a fire.
Oh, wow. That must have been devastating.
It was a huge loss. He lost everything.
Hmm.
His manuscripts, his belongings, memories.
Yeah.
But instead of dwelling on the loss or getting angry,
Mm.
Dyer chose to focus on what he could control.
Right.
He saw it as an opportunity to simplify his life and let go of material attachments. He often said that the fire taught him that true wealth isn't about what you own, but about the relationships you have and the love you share.
That's such a profound lesson. It's a reminder that material possessions can be lost in an instant, but the things that truly matter, love, connection, purpose, those are the things that endure.
Exactly. And Dyer's response to that tragedy is a powerful example of how we can choose to find meaning and growth, even in the face of adversity.
It's about choosing to see the opportunity in the obstacle.
Exactly. And that's a skill we can all cultivate.
Mm.
It's not about denying the pain or pretending that everything is okay. It's about choosing to focus on what we can learn from the experience
Yeah.
and how we can move forward with grace and resilience.
It's about turning our wounds into wisdom.
Beautifully said. And that's what Dyer's life was all about. He turned his own wounds into wisdom and then shared that wisdom with the world,
Mm.
inspiring millions to live happier, more fulfilling lives.
That's such a powerful legacy. Okay, do you have any other stories about Dyer that really highlight his philosophy?
There's another story that comes to mind that illustrates his approach to dealing with criticism. Dyer wasn't shy about challenging the status quo, and his ideas were considered pretty radical, especially early in his career. He faced a lot of pushback.
I can imagine putting yourself out there and challenging conventional thinking always invites criticism. How did he handle that?
He had a remarkable way of reframing criticism. Instead of getting defensive or letting it get to him, he'd often say, "Criticism is a compliment. It means you're doing something significant enough to warrant attention."
That's brilliant. It's like he was choosing to see the positive, even in something that could easily be perceived as negative.
Exactly. He understood that not everyone would agree with him, and he didn't let that deter him from sharing his message. He saw criticism as an opportunity for growth and continued to focus on what he believed in.
This makes me think about how much energy we waste worrying about what other people think.
Right.
We let fear of judgment hold us back from pursuing our dreams and expressing ourselves authentically.
It's so true. And Dyer's approach is a reminder that we don't have to let those fears control us.
Right.
Of course, it's important to be respectful of others, but we don't have to let their opinions dictate our happiness or our choices.
It's about honoring our own truth and having the courage to live in alignment with it,
Yes.
even if it means facing criticism or disapproval.
Exactly. And Dyer believes that when we live authentically, we not only find greater happiness for ourselves,
Right.
but we also inspire others to do the same.
There's that ripple effect again. It's like our own happiness can be a catalyst for positive change in the world. This conversation has been so illuminating. I feel like I'm gaining a deeper understanding of Dyer's philosophy with each story we share.
It's amazing how these stories bring his teachings to life, isn't it? And speaking of stories, there's one more I think is worth sharing that perfectly encapsulates his belief in the power of choice.
Well, I'm all ears. Tell me more.
This one's about a time when Dyer was invited to speak at a large conference.
Good.
He was excited about the opportunity, but as he was preparing, he realized that he had double booked himself.
Oh, no.
He had another commitment on the same day, one that he couldn't reschedule.
That's every speaker's nightmare. What did he do?
He found himself, feeling stressed and conflicted.
Right.
He didn't want to let anyone down,
Right.
but he couldn't be in two places at once.
Right?
Then he remembered his own teachings about the power of choice.
It's easy to forget our own advice when we're in the middle of a stressful situation.
It's true, we're all human. But Dio took a step back and reminded himself that he had a choice.
Yeah.
He could choose to dwell in the stress and frustration, or he could choose to find a solution.
So what did he choose?
He chose to get creative.
Okay.
He contacted the organizers of both events
Hmm.
and explained the situation. He proposed a solution that would allow him to honor both commitments without compromising his values or his well-being.
I'm on the edge of my seat. What was his solution?
He offered to pre-record his presentation for the conference,
Okay.
ensuring that it was high quality and engaging, and then he made himself available for a live Q&A session via video conferencing. That way, he could still connect with the audience and provide value, even though he couldn't be there in person.
That's incredible. He found a way to turn a potentially disastrous situation into a win-win.
He did. And that's the power of choice. It's not always about having perfect circumstances or getting everything we want.
Right.
It's about recognizing that we always have options, even when things get tough.
Right.
It's about finding creative solutions, being flexible, and choosing to focus on what we can control instead of dwelling on what we can't.
That's such an empowering message. It's a reminder that we're not victims of our circumstances, but creators of our own reality.
Exactly. And Dyer's life was a testament to that belief. He faced challenges, he made mistakes, but he always chose to learn, to grow, and to find the good in every situation.
I'm starting to see how his philosophy is not just a set of ideas, but a way of life. It's about approaching life with a sense of curiosity, resilience, and unwavering belief in our own power to choose happiness.
You've captured it perfectly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes his work so timeless and relevant, no matter what challenges we face. We always have the power to choose how we respond, to find meaning in our experiences, and to create a life that's filled with joy, purpose, and fulfillment.
This conversation has been so inspiring. I'm ready to dive even deeper into Dyer's world. Is there anything else we should cover before we wrap up this deep dive?
Well, you've been doing an incredible job of connecting Dyer's teachings to the challenges of modern life.
Yeah.
But there's one more aspect I think is worth exploring. The idea that happiness is contagious.
Contagious? You mean like a virus?
Sort of. Dyer believed that when we choose happiness, we not only benefit ourselves, but we also have a ripple effect on the people around us.
That's beautiful. So it's like our own happiness can actually inspire others to be happier too.
Exactly. Think about it. When you're around someone who's genuinely happy and positive, it's hard not to feel a little bit lighter yourself, isn't it?
It totally is. It's like their energy rubs off on you.
Precisely. And Dyer believed that this was a powerful force for good in the world. He often said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
That's so true. It's like our own happiness can actually help to create a more positive and joyful world.
And that's such a hopeful and inspiring message, especially in times like these when there's so much negativity and division in the world.
It's like a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference.
Right.
Not just in our own lives, but in the lives of others as well.
Exactly. And it all starts with making the choice to be happy ourselves. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it.
I love that. The idea that happiness can be contagious. Makes me wonder if there were any other thinkers or philosophers who, influenced Dyer's belief in this ripple effect.
Well, Dyer was a lifelong learner. He drew inspiration from many sources. We talked about the influence of Eastern philosophy.
Right.
But he was also deeply inspired by figures like Mother Teresa, whose life was a testament to the power of love and compassion.
That makes sense. Mother Teresa's dedication to serving others is a powerful example of how one person's actions can create, positive change in the world.
Exactly. And Dyer believed that we all have that capacity for greatness within us. He often said, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience.
It's like he was reminding us that we're not just these physical bodies,
Right.
but souls on a journey.
Yes. And that journey is ultimately about remembering who we truly are. Divine beings capable of love, compassion, and joy.
It's a powerful reminder that our true nature is not defined by our circumstances,
Right.
but by our essence.
Exactly. And when we tap into that essence, we connect with a source of happiness that's independent of external circumstances. It's a happiness that comes from within.
This is making me think about how much our culture tends to emphasize individual achievement and material success.
Right.
It's like we're constantly striving for something outside of ourselves, always looking for the next thing that will finally make us happy.
And that's the trap Dyer was trying to help us escape. He knew from his own life that chasing external validation would never lead to lasting happiness. He often talked about the difference between becoming and having.
Can you elaborate on that? What did he mean by the difference between becoming and having?
He believed that many of us get caught up in the having mode.
Right.
We think if we just have the right job, the right house, the right relationship, then we'll finally be happy.
It's like happiness becomes this elusive goal that's always
Yeah.
just out of reach.
Exactly. But Dyer believed that true happiness comes from becoming the kind of person who naturally radiates joy. It's about cultivating inner peace, developing our character,
Right.
and aligning our lives with our values and purpose.
It's about shifting our focus from the external to the internal,
Mm,
from chasing happiness to choosing it.
you got it. And that shift in focus is what ultimately leads to lasting fulfillment and joy.
You know, as we've been exploring Dyer's work,
Right.
I keep thinking about how timeless his message is.
Hmm.
It's remarkable how relevant these ideas remain, even decades after he first shared them.
It's true. His teachings tap into something universal about the human experience. Our desire for happiness, our search for meaning, our longing for connection.
This deep dive has been so enriching. I feel like I've gained a new understanding of happiness and the power of choice. As we wrap up our exploration of Wayne Dyer's work, what final thoughts or insights would you like to leave our listener with?
I think the most important message to take away from Dyer's work is that happiness is an ongoing journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs,
Hmm.
challenges and setbacks,
Yeah.
but we always have the power to choose how we respond to those experiences.
We can choose to focus on the good, cultivate gratitude, and practice self-love, even when things are tough.
Exactly. Be kind to yourself, be patient with the process,
Right.
and never give up on the pursuit of joy. It's a journey worth taking, and the rewards are immeasurable.
Beautifully said. And to our listener, we want to hear from you. What resonated with you most from our deep dive into Wayne Dyer's teachings? What small step will you take today to choose happiness in your own life? Share your thoughts and experiences and get the conversation going. Until next time, remember that you are worthy of happiness, and the power to create it lies within you. Keep choosing joy.